and 7 Spanish angels took another angel home.
Hey, I'm Willie Nelson, and you're watching HempRock TV.
We don't run, and we don't compromise, we don't quit, we never do.
Hello, here we are again. I am Master Sergeant Tony Vance, the voice of Freedom's Voice. Tonight we're going to talk about political lives and deaths. General Mike Flynn recently pleaded guilty to the FBI, to lying to the FBI about his contacts and discussions with the Russians. Reportedly, these discussions were regarding economic sanctions placed on Russia as a result of their invasion of Ukraine and the annexation of Crimea. General Flynn told the Russians to wait until after the election and the sanctions might go away. Never mind the Ukrainian soldiers dying from Russian bullets. General Flynn is not the first to make a deal with the foreign government for political reasons while awaiting an election. There was another politician who basically did the same thing, only in his case, the dead were American soldiers. Richard Nixon was preparing to run in the 1968 election against Lyndon Johnson, the incumbent. Johnson was already sick over the loss of American lives in Vietnam, and he wanted to bring the war to an end. He knew also that with the immense pushback of the anti-war protesters, he needed either to win the war or end it as soon as he could. He proposed peace talks and felt that they just might be successful. At least if he got the talks started, he'd be in a better position for the election. Nixon decided that the only way to stop Johnson would be the collapse of the talks. He had an ally in General Chennault, the former commander of air operations in China during World War II. He knew the general's wife and asked her to do him a favor and pass a message to the South Vietnamese president. If they ignored the Johnson talks and waited until after the election, Nixon would get them a better deal. South Vietnam refused to participate and the talks collapsed. Johnson was so distraught over the collapse of the talks and his inability to end the war and other things that he decided not to run for re-election in 1968. The most terrible part of this story is the war went on for another 6 years. 6 years of American deaths that could have been avoided. Were it not for Nixon. His willingness to use suffering and death simply to win an election cannot be understated. My brother's one of them. As a helicopter mechanic, he was in Vietnam from 69 to 70, and he would have been exposed to Agent Orange. He died of 2 cancers in 2009, and cancer doesn't run in our family. It is quite possible he would not have been there were it not for Nixon. Today, we're witnessing another sacrifice of American lives for political ends. President Trump is pushing the country to reopen the economy and get everything back to normal, get the kids back in school before the election in November. He has deemed it imperative to his winning. He is willing to ignore the advice of experts that opening too soon and without a vaccine could cost thousands of lives. Here again, we have a politician willing to sacrifice American lives to win an election. Given the mishandling of the pandemic and the already thousands of deaths we've suffered, they are now really willing to risk more lives simply to look good for the November election. Surely many will die unnecessarily if their plan is carried out. We never held Nixon responsible for the interference that caused so many deaths. Nor have we held Bush responsible for the lies that sent us into Iraq and so many Americans and Iraqis to their deaths. This time we should not let it go. We should not pass it off. Studies show that roughly 36,000 deaths would not have occurred had the Trump administration not denied and completely bungled the response to the pandemic. Now they want more deaths as a sacrifice so they can simply look good politically. We should say in a loud voice, no, no, not one more sacrifice to their avarice and lust for power. The accounting will come. Let us make sure that these lives lost are placed exactly where they belong, at the feet of every one of these immoral and corrupt politicians, with the vow that we should never let it happen again. That's all for this time. See you next time.
Hi, I'm Willie Nelson, and the Willie Nelson Teapot Party and I endorse Veterans for Medical Cannabis Access.
Just roll me up and smoke me when I die.